sign up. Here we go. Woohoo! Ready to roll. So I know I was a little bit late there opening up. Hi, everybody. I was all wrapped up in a conversation and time gets away. And all of a sudden I'm like, wow, it's already after 9. Good thing I checked. How's everybody? Huh? Everybody have a wonderful weekend? Did you get to go out and fly? Yes. Oh, fabulous. Yeah. Anybody have any great flying stories that they want to share?
Hey, I have one.
All right, let's hear it.
Yeah, so last Monday, I got the Miracosta Drone and Technology Program come and fly with me at Oceanside Dragon Fruit Farm. And
Oh,
so it was, Desi, thank you so much for thinking about that. I was thinking the same thing, but I did not know we were going to fly all together. I asked George Foster, the instructor, can I fly my drone? Sure. There's 9 in the air. Talk about, awareness, like space awareness. You're like, oh my God, they're everywhere. That was fun. It was good.
awesome. Awesome. And did he go through the P4M RTK also?
Multispectral, yeah.
Yeah, but it's also RTK.
Yes, yeah.
That's
So he
pretty
put the
impressive.
RTK base
Yeah.
and showed me even like say it's not in the book, but there's 2 stations that you can, put on. And so it was really fun. So, even though we had to check 9 people, he still talked to me and so did the base RTK and then your Phantom 4, you have, not only the controller, you have a pad, the iPad, and then you have to it was 6 acres. So basically we're mapping the 6 acre of farm. So I helped, the students, like this is where, the limits are. And, you have this Phantom 4 at 160 feet in the air doing its job while all the other ones are zipping around. So that was fun.
Oh, wonderful. And that's the same fruit farm that in the future, Women in Drones be able to have an event
Yes,
there. So that's
absolutely.
exciting. Yeah,
Yes.
so keep
Yeah.
that on the horizons, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, I'm so glad to hear that everybody got to get out and have a wonderful weekend. Some got to fly and just enjoy maybe the beautiful weather, right? So I do have a really quick couple of announcements that I'm going to throw into our chat. It will actually be posted into the Women in Drones members book page. There's a drone industry insights survey for drone professionals. So I want to put that in there. Go ahead and take advantage of that and do the survey. So I'm going to throw this into our chat. Hold on, let me bring it up. And that way, if you are a drone professional, you will be able to help maybe shape the future, right? See how we're growing in this industry. So I'm going to put that in there. And then if you're in Texas, this makes me want to move to Texas. They have the meetup that Adrian does. He's put that out in there and so much happening. I can't believe it. So I put that meetup in there if you're in the Texas area. What a segue, right? Now let's segue over to our spotlight speaker, who also has an event coming up in Texas. And so, yes, I think I really do want to move to Texas. There's so much happening there. So with us today, our spotlight speaker, I want to thank you so much, Sean, for joining us. We have Sean Guerre, and he is here to share with us about the Energy Drone and Robotics Summit that's coming up. And it is an amazing program that's going on. It's in its 7th year. So we're going to hear all about it and hear how it's grown and what we can expect if we go there. So Sean, thank you for joining us. I'm going to make you spotlight here for everyone. And let's just kind of kick it off. If you tell us a little bit about you, how you kind of got into this to start with, what kicked off the career path with engineering, drones, and robotics.
Sure. Thank you so much, Desi. I appreciate it. And everybody, howdy y'all. Excited to be here with you today. Look forward to certainly telling you a little bit more about what we've got coming up next month at the Energy Drone and Robotics Summit, or as we like to call it internally, the EDR Summit, heck of a lot shorter. But basically, at the same time, look forward to conversation and having, good Q&A back and forth, talking about what's happening, the trends, the tech, the projects, the use cases, what y'all are seeing and what you want to know more about in the industrial energy space. So just really quickly, for obviously, even though we're in our 7th year, there's a lot of people who don't necessarily know about us because we only are in one sector. We are in the energy engineering industrial sector, meaning a pretty big sandbox, I like to say. We cover everything from power and utilities to oil and gas to petrochemical, chemical, maritime, ports. We're in renewables as well as nuclear and fossil. We cover pipelines, terminals. So quite a large area if you think about it, when you do consider that entire energy industrial kind of critical infrastructure base that we have as our main areas that we cover. To your question specifically, Desi, how do I get into it? I've always been a huge fan of technology and energy. These are the two areas, the nexus of those two things. And we were covering a lot in the world of 2D, 3D, and the growth in some of the tech there around energy projects, particularly around energy construction. And there started to be a ton of drones getting flown around these construction projects for LNG terminals, all kinds of new infrastructure that were being built 8 or 9 years ago. And there was a lot of questions. And now every time I hear people asking a lot of questions, I see that there's probably a need for a community. So there were a lot of questions about the tech, about the services. Do we fly in-house, outsource? What are the rules? There was all kinds of things going on where energy companies were trying to figure out how to best utilize in order to increase safety, efficiency, and the very beginnings of the triple D, right? Dull, dirty, dangerous. That was starting to come across, that people were looking at how can we implement drones and robotics to avoid putting our people at risk. So all that was coming about. We started with social media. That's how we started, was a social media community. Then we evolved into a newsletter. Very quickly, people wanted to have live events of various sizes, whether it's a large summit and conference where people could see, touch, feel in the expo, or whether it was a smaller meetup where they got together in their city and were able to converse about what's happening specific to the critical infrastructure energy drone area. So that's how we started, and that's who we serve. So just to kind of give everybody a little bit of a background, and we do that in all of our channels still today. So we've continued to grow the live events, our virtual live streams, our reports, benchmark surveys, as well as our weekly newsletter came out this morning, about an hour ago, our EDR news. And it's about 16,000 people now globally who participate in the Energy Drone and Robotics Coalition. So it's exciting to see the growth. And our big 3 areas are drones, robotics, and data. And as we've grown, we've continued to gather new and exciting partners. A couple of years ago, we started partnering with Women in Drones and have been a valuable partnership that we value today. So we look forward to continuing a big tent theory, bringing more and more people in who have excitement and want to grow their projects and their businesses around drones and robotics and data in energy critical infrastructure.
Awesome. It sounds so encompassing. And I can see how over the past years it has grown and expanded. And yes, questions have been asked and they're still being asked. And so tell us a little bit about the change that you've seen in the programming, being that it's been there for 7 years now. That's impressive.
It's really interesting to see, Desi, over time, how the programming has changed to meet the needs of the community, right? If you think about it, when you're a community-based audience and you are basically serving that community every day, you get tons of feedback as to what's most important to them. And where I feel like it was very focused in the earlier days around UAV operations, right? The tech, the hardware, best practices on how to operate drones safely and efficiently around critical infrastructure as the tech was evolving. And that's still there today, by all means. The tech continues to evolve, the use cases continue to evolve. We have exciting new things that are happening around BV loss and a lot of other areas that touch in, the different phases of autonomy. So you do have continued growth around the UAV ops, but then we started to see the evolution get a lot more into robotics. So it wasn't just drones, just aerial drones. It was ground drones, whether it was agile robotics, the different types with legs or crawlers. And then we started getting into surface vehicles and subsurface vehicles, ROVs and maritime. So now we see a lot more, at least in the energy space, speaking very specifically to our area, it's much more agnostic to the tool that they're using. It's a lot more about the payload, the sensor, and the data. And that was the latest iteration, I would say. We saw large growth in GIS professionals, data analysts, data scientists, as these energy companies had more and more stakeholders wanting access to their data lake in order to get actionable data, whether it's maintenance, asset integrity, whether it's regulatory and compliance, particularly around new use cases like methane. We started seeing that it was much more about the data and how to visualize that data, whether it's digital twins or whether it's various real-time reporting from the edge. We started seeing a lot more about the data. So that's kind of the evolution. And we now encompass all those pieces and have, we'll be talking a little bit more about the summit in a minute, 8 different tracks that we're now focused on in order to cover all the different use cases and all the different areas. Once again, just in energy industrial. So, you know, we don't cover areas outside of that.
And it looks like we already have comments and questions coming up into our chat. Love to know, I know a few people have already answered the question that I put out there. Love to know how you're utilizing drones or hope to work within the drone industry. And so go ahead and throw it in the chat. We would like it to be very interactive, all right? Looks like we have our energy companies building and creating their own drone staff is a question that popped up.
Yeah, very popular question. And it's you know, a mix, right? We see all different, all the above is kind of the checkbox. So when we look, we have some companies that are very focused on in-house. They have people that are professionals in their various business units that they are training up or getting people involved and have extensive training and programs to develop their in-house teams. We have others that we call hybrid, who are definitely a mix. They use a certain amount of folks on the in-house teams. Let's just say for a utility, a power utility, they have linemen, you know, folks who are out there who are able to take a drone. It's a tool. They're able to take a drone, use it versus another tool that they would have access to. At the same time, they're outsourcing. There are particular types of projects, right? It could be a very expensive payload like a LiDAR, or it may be a very risky type maneuver like they're doing using heavy lift drones for stringing of transmission line, or they're touching the transmission lines, right? That's a big evolve, you know, thing that we're starting to see now, where, you know, you have actually robots and drones touching things, whether it's a propeller on a wind turbine or transmission line. And they're finding that outsourcing that aspect of it, because of either the cost or the very specific needs they have, it makes more sense to outsource that. And then we have a third group, which is actually the largest group. I know people find this hard to believe, but the largest group of people in energy, around energy infrastructure, they own tank terminals, pipelines, you name it, different types of energy. They're not using drones or robots at all. Not at all. I mean, it's amazing to think the largest amount of energy companies aren't using them at all. And so when you think about that, they're still looking at probably outsourcing. So to answer the question, there's a huge amount of capacity for people to help in all different ways, whether it's helping them develop and source and build their in-house programs, all the way to being the outsourced provider that they're looking to in order to just launch their program. So it's kind of exciting to think about that, but great question.
Yes, it is. Looks like we have Whitney, who just got a drone for their GIS program. And when asked, she replied that she has the Mavic 3 Enterprise for her project. I would imagine at your event, there will be a plethora of drones to be seen. What are some of the ones that we can expect to see at the event?
Yeah, always have to be careful because we are neutral. We like to have as many drones represented as possible, as long as they're being utilized in the energy and utility industrial space. Basically active. But to that point, DJI will certainly be there. They're also going to have the new Matrice 350, so that will be there as well as the new Mavic. So we've got some exciting things there. I hope I don't miss any as I go through this, but Autel will be there with their drones. Skydio will be there with their drones. We also have coming folks who have obviously drones for specific purposes, right? So Helios 3 will be there from Flyability. Scout DI will be there as well. We also have, the folks who are coming with, I would say, a variety of different types of drones. So Valero will be there. Their drone actually touches things for ultrasonic thickness, right? So they're able to test, engage some of the corrosion control, thickness things that are going on. We also have Robotics will be there. Several companies will be there who are early movers in the industrial drone delivery and autonomous cargo. Volatus will be there. We also have folks who are coming who have a variety of different types of drones that are being utilized, I would say, in heavy lift. So we have quite a few folks who are coming as well, who are coming from the heavy lift or the BVLOS areas. So Saberwing, who is well known in that market from the heavy lift standpoint, will be there. There's really more than I can name. And if somebody's on here and I'm forgetting you, I really apologize. There's almost 100 companies now who are showcasing all kinds of services, payloads, hardware. And that, as I mentioned, is not just aerial, but also ground and maritime or marine. But we have quite a few folks. So you're going to see several of the autonomous drones in a box. Sorry, I don't want to forget any of those folks. So Percepto will be there. So the drones in the box and some of the more autonomous solutions will be there as well. I certainly, I'll drop a link into the chat before I get off today, driving you so you can see exactly everything that's going on at the event, because you can't keep up with it verbally. And then, if you have a chance to come next month, we'd love to have you. And then a discount code for everybody who's on the podcast today. So Friends of Desi and Friends of Women and Drones will get a discount code as well. So you can either come to the conference or the exhibition as a visitor, and there's a lot to package in both of those.
Awesome. Okay, so in all fairness, I just asked these questions, and it is off the top of your head trying to come up with everything. So I we get that, and so that you just mentioned something. You're about the not only the exhibits, but you're actually having some demonstrations there, aren't you?
We do. So if you think about it, I like to say it's like a 10-ring circus. It's not a 3-ring circus, it's a 10-ring circus, but it's the best circus ever because it's all about drones and robots and data. So some of our favorite things in this group. So what we look at is you have, obviously, the exhibits are going on, and at the exhibits, in some cases, they're live streaming. Talk about the autonomous side, they're live streaming real world, real-time ops that they're doing out in the energy field from their booth. So they basically are showing, and in some cases, you have an opportunity to control the drone from the booth. So that's exciting. Then on top of that, we have the demo zone, which is Robot Row and Drone Zone. We've got a variety of different robots that are going through obstacles. We got a whole pack of dogs who are coming. When I think about it, we've got Unitree is bringing 2 of theirs. We have Antibiotics are bringing 2 of theirs, Animal and Animal X. Boston Dynamics is there with Spot, and Spot is there with a ton of different payloads that can be used for methane detection, for vibration analysis, asset inspection, with a variety of different things that they have going. So there's a whole pack of those will be running around at various times. So we have the demo zone, and then we also have the learning lab. And the thing I like about the learning lab, Desi, is that it is specific to tech updates and use cases. So everything we try to cover at Energy Drone Robotics Summit, very real world. We don't get into a whole lot of policy. We don't get into a whole lot of regulatory. That's not really our area. There are great events going on a lot of times throughout the year that will cover that for you. I mean, we just finished AUVSI's, right? Exponential, a ton of policy things that go on. They have large lobbying organizations. In the fall, there's Commercial UAV Expo, which is multiple verticals, sectors, and they also talk a little bit more on the policy regulatory because that impacts a large part of that bigger ecosystem market. For us, it's a lot more about projects and tech. And so that in the Learning Lab is going on. All that's on the expo, 2 receptions as well going on, our Howdy reception on Monday evening, and our Bots and Brews, which we do on a quarterly basis in different cities, and that'll be coming up on Tuesday night at our event. So we're excited. There's a lot going on for an expo visitor that goes beyond just seeing the booths.
I love that. Okay, share a little bit more about the Bots and Brews.
Bots and Brews is an awesome time. So what we do there is we have a large amount of the different drones and robotics that are there, basically are doing demos, in some cases working with one another. And then we have craft beer, which is always exciting, going on as well. And so really that we try to cover is the most recent use cases. So in Bots and Brews, it's the tech, and it's actually not just like, hey, we did this once a year ago. It's like, what have you done in the last month? So similar to this call, right? Similar to this podcast, y'all talk about what did you do? What'd you do this weekend? Where'd you fly? Well, it's the same thing. In energy, we're like, who did what in the last month? Talk about it. And so Bots and Brews is our opportunity live to bring people together for a couple hours in the evening and have them discuss what's going on and see, touch, feel the different tech as well to see if it's something that might be good for their program.
So exciting. What an action-packed summit. It's just phenomenal of everything that you have going on. We do have a couple more questions, comments, talking going on into our chat. And I want to scroll back up. It looks like there was a question about being a recreational pilot versus the Part 107. Jim Bonnerdale answered that. As far as working it with utility, you need to be a Part 107 pilot. And then James asked about, can drone comms be disrupted by energy? And what he was referring to, I believe, was more like the high-powered energy lines.
Yeah, so that's once again going to come into play, and I have no, stakeholder one way or the other, but just to answer the question clearly, that is going to come into play. It is part of it is going to be based on the voltage, the KVs on the line, if you're talking about specifically that area. But the majority of infrastructure that gets impacted is internal, that becomes GPS denied. And so that's more of an area than the wattage type of scenario. But yes, can some drones, some hardware be impacted based on the infrastructure, based on what it's running or the area that it's in? Absolutely. And when we look at internal, it starts to get into a whole lot of different pieces. Like, for instance, there's a lot of use cases right now that are developing where people are flying inside nuclear containment domes or in actual water, in the cooling water for nuclear. So they're going in a rad area, and basically that will impact potentially the hardware and how you fly or operate or swim, how you're utilizing the drone or robot. But biggest areas we see are the GPS denied, and you have to be able to handle that situation. And then the other is obviously sometimes the weather, right? You're impacted by weather. And in some cases, you don't have the opportunity to decide whether to fly or not. So for instance, one of the areas we cover with our friends at Drone Responders is industrial emergency management. So if you think about, there's a ton of infrastructure cases where you have an impact, a wildfire, a blizzard, a tropical cyclone, storm or hurricane, or unfortunately, we've had in Texas, probably 3 in the last 2 months, what we call industrial incidents, which unfortunately can be very devastating. And these are large fires or explosions that occur at a plant. In all these circumstances, you have to start using drones and robots to go where people can. And either based on the time, because they're trying to figure out how to solve the problem, or to get power back to the people in the community, or they're trying to figure out what to turn back on so they can start refining gasoline again, so that we don't have a gas shortage, because so much of that area is covered in the Gulf Coast. So you have a lot of different issues. Drones and robots have to be used for all of those, or can be used for many of those, and it's very positive. But you're flying in really tough weather, and the infrastructure is also compromised. So I give you many different options there, but that it can impact how and what you're flying.
Definitely can. And each situation can be different also. And so, couple of things that you had mentioned is methane detection. So I hear a lot about that, and I know that is something that is going to be highlighted at the summit. And so, what are you seeing on the horizon as far as ways and methods for detection?
Yeah, so super interesting area, fast growth over the last 2 years, and I think it's reaching, I would say it's zenith, but a pinnacle in late this year, early next. So we have 8 different sessions that are going on just around methane. So throughout the conference, but we have a section, the Methane Strategies Forum, that covers about half of those. And what we're looking at is detection and measurement are really the 2 big areas where drones and robotics come into play. And if you think about it, we have a couple different pieces. So in today's newsletter, to pitch the newsletter to people, we're covering the new rules that just came out from PHMSA. That's PHMSA with a PH, like phone. And that's the Pipeline Hazardous Organization that put out, these are what they feel like the rules and regulations are going to be for interstate pipelines. But you also have in the IRA bill that was passed, methane, both a carrot and a stick. So you have basically where there's going to be an expense in 2024 for a certain amount of methane being released. And then you also have EPA rules that have been under discussion and will be coming out probably in Q4, maybe Q3, but probably Q4. That also, so what we're looking at, to answer the question, Desi, is think of all the infrastructure that drills, produces, processes, transports, and then delivers natural gas all the way to the final industrial, commercial, or residential customer. All of that infrastructure is going to be regulated by one of these rules. All of them have methane leaks, whether it's through something that's planned, like flaring, or whether it's unplanned, unknown. So in order to detect and measure that so that you are not fined, so that you're continuing to check your ESG boxes for your primary stakeholders, and you have a license to continue to operate, you have to be able to detect and measure and then eventually mitigate, fix where these are happening. And that's really with autonomous, right? We have satellites, we have drones, we have sensors, we have agile robots that are able to move around, all of which can help in that detection and measurement. So we're tracking at the Energy Drone Robotics Coalition, I think 200 plus different technologies that are being deployed in drones and robotics just for methane detection and measurement. So to answer the question, it's a massive opportunity and a massive ability for drones and robotics to really impact in a very positive way, as they do in almost everything around energy, in safety and in making sure that we continue to have that license to operate whatever type of energy source we have as part of the asset mix.
Wow. So that's just one of the tracks.
That's one of the 8.
Wow. Oh my gosh. So when you're talking about licensing and such like that, it through the summit, are people able to be certified in any way, or are they presented with the information on how to get certified for this type of training? And that's going to be my also segue into, you've partnered with, I know Law and Tech will be there, Dawn Zalday, and then also drone responders. But tell us a little bit more about, if we're doing industry specific, getting licensed and such like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have several folks, both in the expo and up in the conference area, that are talking about certification, are talking about that area. But because we're covering so much ground so quickly in just 3 days, we don't actually do any of the certification at the event. So that we don't actually have a certification. Now, the one difference is, as you mentioned, this is our first time to work with Don Zoldi on specifically Law Tech Connect Energy Edition, which is exciting because she's done Law Tech Connect before with AUVSI on a broader level, but this is just around energy. And so she's talking very specifically BV loss. She's talking about methane. She's talking about maritime, and talking also about the counter UAS market. So she's got very specific one afternoon. But in that one afternoon, for anyone who's a legal, I think it's 4 CLEs that people are going to get, which I know are important in order to keep their certification as attorneys. But anyone involved in regulatory compliance is going to find that to be a very exciting half day on Monday, the 12th, that's going on, the Law Tech Connect Energy Edition. So we're excited to work with Dawn. We think she's bringing a stellar program together. But that's really, I think, only certification. There's a lot of people, though, that'll be talking about their programs. So we have folks coming from FAA, AUVSI, talking about Assured Safe, talking about, we have several folks coming who are talking about different compliance training type programs that they have the ability to do. Baldwin's going to be there, USI is going to be there. So anyone who's looking at different certifications, workshops, opportunities, there's going to be a lot of information there about what it takes. The other big piece is we bring a lot of the energy asset owners, right? That's what you would expect for the Energy Drone Robotics Summit. And they're going to be talking about what they require. So to answer some of your folks' very specific questions, they're going to be talking about how people become pilots for them, how people are able to enter their programs, what type of services they're looking for, and what are their plans moving forward? How do they see the end of the year finishing, and what are they planning for 2024? And you got to remember, in some of these energy companies, we're looking at, hundreds, if not thousands of flights a day that they're doing around the globe. So these are very large programs, and they'll be talking about specifically how they're utilizing drones and robotics and scaling their programs.
Fantastic. I did put the information in there, the link to actually the coalition. And then I also put in the information, because we've sat here and talked about the summit, but I want to make sure that we put those dates out there, right? It's coming up June 12th through the 14th. And so I put the link in there for that. Tell us a little bit more about the newsletter. So I would love to share about that a little bit. And it sounds like it just came out today.
Yeah, absolutely. So each week we go out with the newsletter covering kind of into a new market. They were in Europe and now they're moving into North America. So those are kind of some of the big ones we use, to keep track of what's happening in the industry. So it's kind of a finger on the pulse. The only thing that comes up more often, obviously, is social media, right? On our LinkedIn and Twitter, that's coming out multiple times a day. So that's really where we keep, the majority of what's happening on a regular basis. But the weekly is a good recap.
And I did put a link in there into our chat for all the social media channels. That way, if somebody has a favorite that they'd like to follow. Doing a quick reminder that we are going to be coming up to where we cut things off. So if you had any last minute questions, we want to make sure that we address those. And there's that discount code. Boy, we sure appreciate that. Thank you so much. And love that you offer that. I love the partnership that you do with Women in Drones. And so as far as the summit itself, and the amount of growth that you've had. I know you've had a lot of change and seen direction and all that, but tell us a little bit about some of the vendors that we can expect to see if we were going there, because I know there's been added so many new vendors.
Sure, absolutely. So beyond, I think what we talked about earlier with the different types of drones that are going to be there, aerial, and we talked a little bit about some of the other agile robotics that are going to be there. But you also are going to see, as I mentioned, several types of drones that and or robots that are not just doing inspection, mapping, surveying, but these are actually detecting and fixing. They are maintaining. So we have robots there that sandblast, that paint, that do ultrasonic thickness tests, as I mentioned earlier. I mean, these are drones and robots that are actually, being put in service in tanks that actually have chemicals in them. So you're looking at, as I mentioned earlier, around nuclear. So these drones and robots are being deployed in a lot of different ways. And I think that's very exciting to see some of what's out there in that area. I think autonomous situation is also one that's being explored by multiple exhibitors. So all the different, and that's in today's newsletter too, by the way, we talk about the BVLOS tech stack. So what's the tech stack that's, looking at different ways that you could be achieving BVLOS for energy projects. So that's one of the things in today's newsletter as well. So if you look at that, that involves, right, multiple types of technology and partnerships to create an end-to-end system to accurately and autonomously be able to do BVLOS on a regular basis, as some of these new waivers are allowing deployments on a very large scale basis. It takes a lot of different tech. And so we have a lot of those involved. So your DAA, detect and avoid, we've got different types of VTOL and fixed wings that have long capacities that are able to go long duration. In fact, there's one session that I'll talk about of the many that are going on where we're going to be talking about a long linear infrastructure, new world record. So they're going to be talking about all the tech that was involved to make it happen. It was for a utility and it went the longest and the farthest. So I think that's going to be a very exciting session that we're looking forward to having at the event. And the tech that makes it possible is there on the summit floor. So you're able to take a look at all the different things that are happening, as well as, last and never least, all the services, right? You have to have so many different services that are there in order to make this work, whether it's tech related, like the payloads, very specific types of new LiDAR, the miniaturization of payloads, as well as, the service companies, as I mentioned, around safety, compliance, your safety management systems. You have to have all those in place as well, and they're there. So I feel like you have, we're certainly not an ecosystem show like some of the bigger ones, but when it comes to energy and industrial, I think you're getting a good mix of everything it takes to be successful with your program. And you're having a real opportunity to see, hundreds of energy companies all together at one place, one time. And that's pretty rare. Usually it's those folks are not together all at one place, one time. And this chance they are.
Oh, and it just gets you so excited to go. You just get all pumped up. I can't wait to see it all, So one of the key things is that once we've gone out, we've gathered all this data, and we have all these amazing tools at our fingertips to do this, data deliverables. That is just, what do we do with it? And I know at the summit you have vendors and such that will be sharing along those lines. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the data deliverables?
Absolutely. So if you think about it from the standpoint of it all goes towards one thing, making the data actionable. That's the key. And everybody may not define that exactly the same way. In some cases, they're actually looking at how do we take inspection data? How do we then have that analyzed in some sort of AIML infrastructure so that we're able to then make it and determine the level that it needs to be handled at and actually put that into their legacy software, an ERP system, where they actually then deploy a crew out to do the work, whether it's around a methane leak or it's around maybe something that's going on at a utility in their transmission distribution. So it's amazing to think about all the different things that have to happen and how do you manage all of that data to make it actionable. So it's not just the collection, but it's actually the workflows on how fast you're able to get that from the edge where it's being collected into a organized system. That workflow allows for the analyzing of it. And then once again, how do you then take that analyzed data and make it actionable? And we have a whole track on energy data ops, which is just around AIML and gets into all of that. So I think one of my favorite quotes was from ConocoPhillips last year. They said we were expecting a data lake, we got a data tsunami. And so that is, I think, explains where most of these people are, where I think in all throughout drones and robotics, these sensors are picking up so much data, so many data points on every one of these critical infrastructure assets. How do you manage that data? How do you effectively make it where you're not just overloading your current systems, but you're evolving them? So I think that piece of the puzzle has become quite large, and there's quite a bit going on, because otherwise it doesn't make sense to keep collecting data that isn't not utilized.
Exactly. That's the key. You have to put it out there. You've got all this information. What do we do with it? How do we get it out there? So also, can you share a little bit about how people are scaling reality capture? Kind of an industry in a direction that I like to go in. So it just kind of falls in suit with along the lines of what we're sharing. And so how do you foresee that?
Yeah, so one of the exciting things when we look at industrial reality capture is what we're seeing today is some really unique solutions where they're taking legacy data, right? Legacy. So this stuff was not collected via drones and robots today. They're not out there with the current scanners and sensors and payloads, and they're not putting together point clouds. This is legacy information. In some cases, we're seeing video. They actually have video that they are using. And so I think that's one of the more exciting things is they're taking things that are 2D or in a different type of format like video, and they're evolving those into digital twins. They're allowing this to actually be data that comes from multiple sources, including legacy, and putting that together. In the reality capture, I think there's a very exciting picture from today's standpoint as well, in all the different tools that they're utilizing that we have now that are just starting to be deployed. And we're starting to get very refined data that are able to be put into digital twins. The other part that's exciting about reality capture is people are creating, like at ExxonMobil, a digital reality ecosystem. I mean, they are taking data to a whole nother level. And that's exciting on how they're looking at their assets and how they're looking at reality capture and using that not just as a tool, but as a solution. And I love hearing when they share about that and we talk about the different ways that reality capture are being utilized. One of the things I like to say is when people say, digital twin, or, it's like, okay, you just said, I like digital twins. Well, I like ice cream. That's great. What flavor, right? There's so many different things that you could be doing with digital twins and what type of digital twin, and as far as also making it real-time data. And I think those are some of the exciting developments that we're seeing that we cover every week in the news. And we have, like I say, multiple sessions and multiple solution providers who are going to be showcasing this at the summit in a couple of weeks.
Amazing, amazing. So I think I put in a link to your newsletter. I just went to your webpage, said get involved. Okay, so I put that in there. Great information there. So definitely want to sign up for that. And so, and I know we're running up near the end of the program. And so real quick, like, can you share just if someone was going to be attending some of the tracks? I know there's several that you have available, but can you just share some of those tracks that are available? And that way, if it's something specific to someone here, they know what direction they might want to focus on.
Absolutely. So the traditional track that we've had, like I mentioned, for many years, and I'm dropping a link right now to today's newsletter, just so people can see the one I've referenced a couple times. So if you go to that, you'll be able to see actually today's newsletter. But to answer your question, you're looking at UAV operations, right? Is the OG. I mean, we've had that one for a long time, and there's still a lot going on in that area. Then we have robotics, inspection, maintenance, repair. This is more where we're talking about ground robotics typically versus drones. And we're talking about, once again, going beyond inspection, mapping, surveying, but into actual maintenance and repair. Then energy data ops, which I mentioned, which we get into just not just the collection, handling of data, safety, cybersecurity, but we start to get into the workflows as well as AI ML, and we start to look at digital twins. We have a burgeoning young group on industrial drone delivery and autonomous cargo. This is middle mile, heavy lift. We're not doing tacos. We're basically, which is awesome that you can get tacos via drones anyway, but and we're not doing medical delivery, which is also awesome that people are able to get so many different things handled there. This is industrial delivery. So we're covering that area. Marine robotics, as I mentioned, which is surface, subsurface, any type of aquatic environment or in a tank. Methane strategies, also renewable energy robotics, big growth area in energy around utility scale solar, as well as wind and battery storage, both onshore and offshore. And then we also have, like I mentioned, our three co-located workshops. I almost forgot. We have LawTech Connect Energy Edition for compliance and regulatory and program leads. We have Industrial Emergency Management Workshop with drone responders, and just announced a few weeks ago, Esri. So for our GIS crowd is doing a workshop as well, specifically to the energy infrastructure area. So I think that's all of them. I don't think I missed any of the kids who are going to be there.
Wow. And if that doesn't excite you to go, well, that is amazing. Oh my gosh, so detailed. And just being in that whole industry of energy and robotics, it's our future. And there's just so many pathways there. And being provided this opportunity to soak up so much information has been phenomenal. So we are just about out of time here. So I just want to make sure that everybody has had an opportunity to save the chat, because we put a lot of really good information in there. And I just want to wrap it up by saying thank you so much. And if there's any last thing that you would like to say, Sean, and just share with everyone, feel free to just throw that out there. And we got our thank yous already popping in there. And we did put the date in there that's coming up here just in a couple weeks.
June 12th through the 14th in Houston. We'll have about 1,500 folks coming together. So we like to say it's an intimate event, but everybody's welcome. And we do really mean that. And as far as the Energy Drone Robotics Coalition, thank you so much, Desi, for having us on today. Really appreciate it. And we appreciate all of you who are out there every day in all the different areas around drones and robotics and making things happen. And if you have anything that you want to tell us about, please shoot me an email, okay? I'm all over the website, our editors. You tell us what you're doing. We'll put it in the newsletter so we can get the word out. And I hope some of y'all are able to come see us in a couple of weeks in Houston. We'd love to see you. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you for your time. I'm so honored that you were here to share with us today. Looking forward to an amazing event. Thank you so much. That kind of wraps it up.